So I thought I'd pick up on the sort of the general coronavirus theme because it's pretty hard to escape now. But in terms of what it means for the games industry, and look at the cancellation of E3. So I think everyone has like some variation of this where, let's say like early March, so late February, early March, when we were hearing about coronavirus. But I think a lot of people have that moment when it became very real for them. And for me, as superficial as it sounds, it was when they cancelled E3, because that then said to me that, okay, this is now impacting our industry, and that means everything can be shut down. And it turns out everything was shut down. But I thought it was interesting for E3 in particular, because this is an event that had, I guess we could say, issues for a while. And I think the cancellation of this event in particular might have some ramifications in the future. So thought I'd get people's thoughts on it. Has anyone been to E3?
Nope.
Okay, I'm not alone then.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, I was hoping to either like this year or next year, like get to go, but yeah, we'll see what's going to happen. But so, what do people think about E3 in general? And like, do you think? Because the thing about E3 is like the purpose of it. Like, what's the point? What's the need to have this big event when so many companies are either pulling out or having their own events? So we've had obviously Sony pulled out last year and had already pulled out this year, even before the cancellation. And Jeff Keighley also decided he was going to pull out of the event. So even before the cancellation, things were looking a bit ropey. And yeah, what do people think about the need for E3? Do we need E3 next year or in future?
I think I saw on someone's, like, actually I've seen this around quite a bit. For content creators, is actually a huge networking opportunity, E3. So I know these big, like something like Sony, they probably don't need that as much, but like for a content creator starting out or sort of established, they need E3 to network, to do those sort of things. And for them, they've lost a huge opportunity to get to know more people, to strengthen their bonds with other things. And I think that's E3 is useful for that side of things. So that's why lots of people were really upset about it. Not just obviously finding about new games, and I think also people like getting together and that sort of thing. That's why conventions are so successful. It almost feels like a convention type thing that's been shut down. So
yeah.
So I watched a really interesting video from one of like my favorite creators, who's a games media journalist, and has done that for a long time. And by the way, the video is Alana Pierce. So if you do want to check it out, and she talks about E3 and what E3 actually is, and that what we see when you're not at it is different from what E3 actually is, and a lot of what we see isn't actually E3. That's just the press conferences that the games companies are holding and have nothing to do with E3. They just all happen at that time because it makes sense to. Does that make sense? She explains it way better, but I get what that's like the breakdown. But from an insider and someone that's been in the industry for a long time, and that E3 is like the biggest part of her year. Like, it was really interesting because obviously for me, I've never been to E3. I'm not a journalist. I don't really know that much really about E3 apart from, like, I'm not even someone that really watches it that much. I normally just get the news after. I'm like, yo, everyone, what's the lowdown? And like when I was a kid, I used to have I used to be subscribed to like Nintendo magazine and I think like a PlayStation one, and so I'd look forward to like the E3 pages on that. But yeah, like I completely agree. It's one of those things that the thing that's missing by not having an event, because we can still have like the talks, right? They can just live broadcast them. Is that like I imagine it sounds great. Like E3 floor sounds great for networking, and that's exactly what apparently it is. It's like networking and getting those like interviews done and things like that. And I'm like, wow, that would actually be like a massive loss to the industry, especially for like you said, like smaller content creators and like having that variety, because then it will be only really people that have those contacts and have that rapport already built up that will be able to put that content out that's about news about video games. So yeah.
No, I get it. I think it would be a loss because you've got that like physical sort of in-person meeting, that ability to sort of do business sort of outside of the press conferences which the press see. But I guess where we're going now is like with even before Sony, Nintendo, they're not quite pulling out, but in terms of not having a as big a presence as they had in previous years and doing their own Nintendo Directs during E3. And then I think the thing with Sony is when you miss out on the biggest sort of industry event, but then as far as I can tell have like no loss of sales, it sends a worrying message that you don't need this event from a like strictly sort of money, like bottom line perspective. But I think one of the aspects that I liked for E3 is if you're in gaming, obviously you know about it, but you're also aware of all the other things going on. If you're not in gaming, E3 was the one time where like the mainstream I felt took notice of video games. So it was one time I'd see like reports on BBC or ITV or whatever talking about games, and I guess in terms of like broadening the reach of gaming, I felt there's an important aspect of E3 which might not necessarily be the stated purpose of the event, but I like to think had made some way into just getting people to be aware that games is a serious business and it's not just some random people playing alone. It's like, you know, there's careers, there's these big titles, there's a reason to care about it. So I think, yeah, if it, I mean, I think it will change. Hopefully next year they will be able to do a different event, but I anticipate like with Sony sort of stepping out, other companies will kind of say maybe we don't need to spend whatever amount of money it takes to put on like a presence at E3, and we can have our own thing that we control the message totally, which I think in some respects would be a shame.
Well, I think like the rest of like the outside gaming world taking gaming seriously it's just something that's going to change from this year onwards anyway.
Okay.
Because everyone having to stay inside has definitely changed people's opinions on video gaming, especially who and their like complete turnaround in less than a year.
Rose, you were gonna say something.
I was gonna say that I think that there's a lot to learn from just having like, you know, Nintendo Directs and stuff like that. With having streams just generally to consumers. I know that E3 is a huge loss to content creators, to people getting hands-on with the game itself, but especially to consumers who were only watching it digitally anyway. I feel like they're probably weighing, with PlayStation pulling out regardless anyway, that they were just weighing up the pros and cons of how they can reach a wider audience of people who can't journey to E3, because obviously one of the other perks of E3 is getting hands-on with some of the games. And not to mention there was like a huge disengagement from some of the cinematics of games that they showed, because it wasn't showing gameplay, it was just showing like Death Stranding. I do really like Death Stranding, but they showed pure cinematics and not anything that people could truly like emotionally engage with.
Yeah,
it's only when you get hands-on with the game that you can basically engage with it. So I think for the direction that Sony wants to go with cinematics of games, it would have worked out better for them to just broadcast it as a cinematic in the first place.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Sure.
Okay, so and then wait, Isaac, were you gonna say something?
I don't think so.
Oh, I must just imagine that.
That's
But
I agree with everything you said. Good.
the other thing I was thinking about, and this is like sort of as well as looking at the industry, like totally personal, but I just saw a report that Gamescom is thinking about possibly doing a digital event. So Gamescom I think Gamescom is actually the biggest gaming event just by number of attendees. Because I went last year and it's massive. We're talking like almost like 400,000 people visiting over uh, the days. It's a huge event, and someone was telling me like it's bigger than E3 and San Diego Comic Con combined. It's just so in terms of like actual people, it's the biggest event, but they take place in August, and I was hoping to go this year.
I might still
Now
have
see,
to.
because I can always keep my fingers crossed. But I think just because of the way this coronavirus situation is happening, is that like was said, is that it's just going to have an impact, like regardless on the way games are shown, which is a shame because you're missing out on that sort of that ability to play a game in person or see in person or meet industry people in person. So they're waiting to make that decision in mid-May. So I've read, but yeah, we'll kind of see what happens. And I think it wouldn't be a surprise if they just went the digital route for this year, and that would just be the the theme for 2020. Everything is happening via sort of direct stream. And yeah, just to continue on the sort of coronavirus thing, but something a bit more positive. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but with like all the sporting events being cancelled, you've kind of got people turning to esports as a way to sort of, I guess, number one, keep from going insane, and two, actually get some competition going. So I think Tanya, you were saying about sort of F1 drivers playing the video game version and competing through that recently.
Yeah, so this is like information from my partner because he's a massive car fan. But yeah, he was telling me about that they done like an F1 virtual simulation race, which apparently they use a virtual simulator anyway as part of training and things like that. But this was like, they were like, well, we can't do our Grand Prix, so let's just do it virtually. And they had a lot of fun with it. And apparently the commentating went along the lines of, where is esports now? And they were like having a bit of a laugh and a joke about it. And from what the tiny bit that I saw and from what I heard, it was like a vacation for them. And they were making like the best out of a bad situation, and they were doing stuff that they wouldn't do on a real track, like crashing into each other, which is definitely against the rules. Like
I'll say, like, what?
purposely like totaling each other, but obviously it's virtual, so you know, there's no like real consequences. And I just thought like it just sounded really heartwarming. And it kind of made me imagine, like, I know some, like, there are virtual racing teams that work alongside some of, like, the big racing events. But it made me think, like, maybe, like, the future of sports is that you have, like, your real-life sports person, and then, like, they have an esports counterpart, you know? So that if anything goes down, it's like, okay, you know, pass the buck on to our esports counterpart. But yeah, no, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I could see that actually working, like some sort of esports league with all of these sports like racing, football, and rugby.
Yeah, there are a number of teams, like sporting teams, that have esports counterparts. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I'll find out, but I feel like there's a trend towards that. And like, so I guess sort of everyone here, Rose, I imagine you're more in tune to like sort of esports, particularly with like the fighting game community. How do you think like this situation that we're in will impact esports?
As of this point in time, a lot of the esports events do with like the tours, like the Tekken World Tour, and the Capcom Cup. A lot of the like it's either been postponed or it's being cancelled altogether. Like there was a Masters event for the Tekken World Tour that was meant to be taking place in May, and I was scheduled to go there. It was in Sweden. It's called Headstomper, and it's kind of just it's had to it's been forced to be postponed kind of thing. What a lot of people like haven't realized, especially in the FGC as well, is that obviously we're all seeking like refunds and stuff, but the truth is that while like I may have like got a refund for my hotel, I've told the organizers that I don't want a refund on the tournament itself because I know how much cost it takes for them to even plan these events and where the money gets locked up to. So for all these TOs and organizers to survive, it's kind of like you have to, like, in good faith and as a goodwill gesture, just leave them with the money so that they can, like, the next year create an event. And this is like kind of the thought wave that a lot of FGC people are now developing. Some of us have even gone the route of planning online tournaments and online content creation and streams and stuff to fundraise for these organizers that are suffering from all the people, having to get refunds because of the event being cancelled, unfortunately. So it's a very odd time for the FGC because how events are, especially for the FGC, they're not quite at that sustainable level yet. So it's kind of like trying to find a way to make it so that they can come back the next year without being severely in debt.
And I guess it depends on like what games. I've seen a few, I don't really follow that much esports that closely, but I've seen a few tournaments that have been sort of shifted to online. But with fighting games, obviously that's a lot harder because there's so much issues with lag and things over like doing it online. So it does like make you think of what backup plans can esports that doesn't run well online and can't be run as well online need to have in place to do as a substitute if anything like this, fingers crossed it doesn't, but if anything like that largely affects the world, and we do have to sort of
there's a lot more online tournaments that are now spawning, especially just to raise funds for the actual offline tournaments and Masters events and stuff like that had to be cancelled or postponed, but we're trying our best to kind of overcome this as a community. And I think that's a great part of the FGC, especially the offline community really does like care a lot about making sure that it survives and the future of this survives.
Yeah, I mean that's a really nice gesture, and like as a event organizer, admittedly on a much smaller scale, but just being aware of all the logistical like costs and hassle that goes into planning an event, just regardless, like an event that actually happens, but just having to sort of move things around, and when you have to cancel an event, it's just like a nightmare for that. So that's good. Yeah, pretty much, because what do you do? And especially when it's just something that's so out of your control, and you've got to take into account like obviously the attendees, but then the staff, the venue, like all the promotion you've prepared for up until that point, all the work that's gone into it. And so it's good to hear that there's some like sort of community rallying going on, and I guess some understanding. And I think in this situation is just, we've seen sort of examples of companies and sort of what not to do in this situation, but I think for the most part, you have companies that are just like doing their best, and the awareness that cancelling the event sort of impacts on like you said, like just people's jobs, it was people's financial security and all that. So yeah, that's really good to see. And like as well as all the like I've seen because I'm a football fan, so I've seen like players from Barcelona and the Spanish league sort of take part in a FIFA tournament. So things like that happening, and I guess in a weird way, like this is gonna have some impact on, again, video games seen as a legitimate like pastime, even though obviously we know it is. But when you have the world like impacted in this way, and whether it's F1 drivers or professional footballers turn into these video games, and it just gives it sort of that, I don't know, validation. I don't even want to use that word, but just in the mainstream, just people see, oh, okay, we can play video games. That's a way, and it helps people to stay indoors and keep safe.
I think it helps to like change the face of video games as well, and help to sort of like change the narrative around like who plays video games and what that looks like. Because it's still very much seen. Like I have people like I literally had someone tell me today, well, if you play video games, how are you going to get like a proper boyfriend? And I'm like,
As opposed to a fake one.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
like I was like, what? And then they were like, yeah, like real men don't play video games. I mean, I was live, so I had a few guys that play video games, and they're like, I play video games and I'm a businessman, and it has nothing to do with like
What the hell?
what
Someone
I've never heard of that. Real
Yeah.
men don't play video
The
games.
stereotypes
I
are
know, it's so
crazy.
bad. And I literally had to say, like, we don't accept that attitude here. Like, that's just like not okay for men or women, like, or anyone else. Like, it's a pastime. Like, what do you do in your spare time?
There are
Watch
some
films.
pro players as well who are like, they go to the gym, they have, full-time employment, and they're one of like the top tier like players, and
Yeah.
they have a full life around it, and then you just like, you can't date a real man. I'm like, what's that supposed to look like? That what is that right now?
What does that even mean? Like, what even? But yeah, so but it just shows that there still really is a lot of people. Like, it's not the first time I've had a comment like that. It's not it's still people don't really see it, but this is definitely changing during this time, because now everyone's stuck at home. They're kind of at the point where it's like, oh, I've watched enough TV, and as much as there's a lot of good shows out there, you kind of need something that's a bit more active for your brain, because you will get bored, and video games are a very active like form of like mind-wise active form of entertainment. I mean, they can be physically active as well. I was playing Ring Fit earlier.
Oh my goodness.
But like it's a great hobby and pastime to have, and this is actually what games are being talked about a lot in the media right now, because it's like, here's one of the things you can do. And it will help. It's captivating and will help you interact with other people, and have tasks to do, and like you can avoid. It can help you cope with things like depression, because you can have goals and tasks when you might be like out of work or temporarily out of work at the moment, and it can be hard, but that gives you some sort of sense of achievement where you're like, woo, I done whatever in this game.
Definitely.
I paid off my mortgage in Animal Crossing, like that would ever happen.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah,
Yes,
it is.
that's a real thing.
And you pay off your loans as well.
Okay, hold on. We need to discuss this, because so I've not played an Animal Crossing game, and I need to be educated on this, because I'm just seeing so much Animal Crossing content, and you just told me you can pay a mortgage in Animal Crossing, so now I need more context.
It's kind of like
what is going on?
Game.
So is it you just have a? By the way, this is the part of the show that's purely for me. So you basically you have like an island, and then you build a house, and you just like maintain that house.
You have an island, then you have a tent on an island, and then
Okay.
you pay to have basically make a house out of it.
How
And
do you
then you pay to
want-
expand your house, and then you pay to expand it even further with multiple floors and multiple rooms.
But
And
wait,
then you've had to
what's
pay
the
for all the
currency in the
furniture
game?
too. Huh?
What's the currency in the game? Like, what's the economy here?
It's called bells and
Bells.
Nook Miles. So Nook Miles don't pay for anything to do with the house really, except for the beginning. But bells is the currency of Animal Crossing altogether.
And how does one acquire these spells?
Sell fruit.
Sell fruit on other people's islands.
Right. Okay. So what? So if I'm playing a game, do your islands come into my game? Can I go to your island and like hang
Uh,
out?
In this game, like beforehand, it used to be a train station, but in this game in particular, it's an airport. So what you do is that you, especially if you have a Switch and you have all your friends on there, you can talk to the dodo, which technically is your
Like a
check-in
literal
desk.
code.
You're checking, yeah, dodos
Literal
that
dodo.
can't fly
Okay.
are flying airplanes, right? We got this.
I see what they did there.
Extinct as well, but we won't talk about that part. you,
Don't
you talk
even
to
go
them.
there.
So yeah, you talk to basically the dodo at the check-in desk, and you tell him that you want to open up your airport for visitors, and you can open up to either everyone on your friends list, everyone overall. You can create a
Okay.
dodo
So you
code,
run
so you can even
this
have
island. You're
specific
not just
people.
like you actually run this island. You're not just like
The
living on
unofficial
it. You
mayor
can.
of things,
Okay.
yes.
I like that. All right.
We need a crown, but we can go buy that, but that's a lot of money right now.
Wow. Okay. I need to. Yeah, I feel like I've just missed the Animal Crossing frenzy, and I feel like out of place now. But I might have
Oh,
to
and it's
get
also
Not
that.
missed
event
it. It's
season.
definitely very, very much going on.
Okay.
My timeline on Twitter at the moment is like the world's impending doom. Animal Crossing, impending
Yeah.
doom. Animal Crossing.
I got a bit of that as well. Like there's a section of society that is just chilled with the whole coronavirus situation because they're in Animal Crossing. So who really cares? And I want to be in that. I want to be in that world.
Since it's the 1st of April, Animal Crossing now has an event called Bunny Day
Okay.
to do with Easter eggs growing on trees. But
Cool.
it's all cathartic at the
Well,
end of the day.
I'll
Very
do
cathartic.
not. All right. So yeah, that was the Educate Nigel on a video game section of the show.
Maybe that can be a new.
Yeah. Just I don't get
Nigel
this.
stream Animal Crossing.
Yeah. Do people want to see that? I don't know if people want to see that. But
I would
let's not
watch
give people ideas.
Yeah.
from beginning to end. I would
People
watch.
do.
Yeah, let's move on before like I get myself into something. Just to let you guys know, I just want to give a heads up. We are going to get into a Xbox PlayStation debate, but I want to save that till a bit later, just because we're all friends right now, and I like that to stay how it is as possible. So before we get there, one thing I did want to mention, and I thought again this would be purely for me, but I understand, Akira, you've played Half-Life.
A long time ago.
Yes, too long ago. All right, so you're gonna feel me on this. How did you feel when a new Half-Life game was announced, but it was VR?
I feel like the only word I could use to describe it was vex.
Yeah,
Because I feel like Half-Life, just the whole game series, has such a cult following. And when I first played it, it was one of the first games I played. I was like, wow, this game is really interesting. I didn't know games could be like this. I want to play the next one. Oh, there isn't a next one. And this was in like 2014. So it's a good how many years after like the first game came out. But like everybody else, I patiently waited, and then Valve said,
waited.
"Oh, we've got another Half-Life coming out." So I was like, "Oh, this is great," because Valve, you also owe me Left 4 Dead 3, so you gotta move something. Like I'm waiting, and then it was VR. I feel like I could have cried. I didn't cry, guys. I didn't cry, but I could have cried. And people are like, "Are you going to give up?" And I feel like I can't give up now. I've waited so many
You're
years.
in.
I've got to
Yeah.
keep going.
You're in. All right, so I feel like I've got to explain Half-Life a bit because it's been so long that there is literally a generation of people who may not even be aware of this game.
If they're
But
not, they've literally missed everything gaming because I feel like every news article, like each year at Gamescom, is like, when's
that's true
Half-Life
when
3
it's
coming out?
coming out.
But then
Yeah.
what is this mystical Half-Life 3?
I just remember playing it on the PS2 though. That was so long ago.
Yeah, it's too long. But so yeah, Half-Life being this like I guess groundbreaking is the word to use, like first-person shooter where you play Gordon Freeman, the silent protagonist. And if I remember, and apologies because my memory gets rocky after like 5 years, let alone 13. But you're in this kind of, it wasn't quite post-apocalyptic, but it's very I don't know what the word is. Like it's very like lockdown, kind of a bit like what we're living in now. But
Too relevant.
yeah, actually, just I'm thinking about that opening sequence because you actually go through the world and you see like soldiers or like the police kind of beating people down and like keeping people in their houses, and then you meet up with sort of like freedom fighters that are led, or not led, but one of them is called Alex Vance, and she is now the protagonist in this VR game. But the thing about Half-Life 2 and what Valve used to do is they'd introduce new mechanics into the game that would kind of set the standard for sort of the industry as a whole. And in Half-Life 2, they brought forward the gravity gun. And at that time, just like physics in video games was a thing that wasn't the most accurate, but in this gravity gun that let you like pick up and fire objects in the world and let you kind of progress and like deal with puzzles in the world. It was just a groundbreaking thing, and then they built upon it with Portal, which is another fantastic game. So yeah, I was the same. Like I was waiting for more Half-Life, and on one hand, I'm glad that they're bringing out a new game, but as someone who doesn't own any VR equipment, I'm kind of like, oh, I can't really take part in that. So I feel kind of left out.
As someone that has not played Half-Life properly, I've watched it. I bought it for my friend for his birthday a couple years back. Obviously, he'd played it a lot before. I bought it because it was one of his favorite games. Okay. And just knowing a lot of its history and how much it has like, how much it did sort of like make an impact on how games are made. It excites me that the newest Half-Life is on VR, because that means that Valve have invested in VR and believe it to be like the next turning point in gaming.
Okay.
And as a big like really want VR to be like really mainstream person, it's like, wow, if they're doing it, loads of developers are going to follow suit.
Yeah. So Valve do have their own VR system, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's literally called Steam VR.
Okay.
But I think at the moment it's it's sold out everywhere because they had loads of issues with production for obvious reasons.
Sure.
Yeah, everything's
okay. So
China.
Will you be looking to get this?
Yes, I've watched some gameplay. I mean, I was already like, I want to get VR. It was just a case of not being able to afford it. And not having and I was like looking into options of like, do I get a PlayStation 4 and get VR? Do I like upgrade my PC and get VR? But looking at the Steam VR, I'm like, oh, that might be a good option. But it's like a not right now thing. But definitely wait a bit. There are a lot of good, fun VR games, but not a lot of campaign VR games.
This feels like a quote-unquote proper game.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like, I've watched a bit. It looks beautiful. Like a lot of the VR played. It's like really fun and engaging, and like mechanics wise, pretty good. But like graphics wise, it's like, it's not like groundbreaking. It's not, it's like Nintendo level of, graphics.
Ouch.
It's
And
like Nintendo
Shame at
level graphics.
Nintendo.
Yeah, I know.
no, but we all know that Nintendo aren't the pioneers on like pushing.
Yeah. It's not their
what is
priority.
it's not their priority. Gameplay is, and we love them for it. But yeah, but like Half-Life just looks like it just looks great. It looks amazing, and it's a full-on chunky campaign game, and it's a shooter, which is like a great way for VR. Well, puzzle shooter, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great way to make use of things you can do in VR, like picking stuff up and moving stuff, and as well aiming and shooting. And it just looks good. And it's like, if this is the starting point of like the real like starting like kickstarting point of VR, then can't wait.
Okay. So does anyone else like own a VR or has like played a lot of VR games? Like, what's the feeling on VR in the room, the virtual room? I'm gonna take that as a no. No one.
I don't own a VR, nor have I ever tried one, but I want to. I do want to get a VR. I feel like
what's stopping you?
Future. I feel like it's like 3D. When I first watched Avatar was the first film I watched in 3D.
Yeah.
I liked it, but I don't think they're there yet in regards to technology,
Yeah.
And we wanted to get a 3D TV, like a 3D compatible TV, whatever, at home, but we were just like, they haven't perfected that technology yet. And I think that's how I feel about VR. They're doing well, but I still feel there's too many hiccups for me to invest in it right now.
Okay. And what about over on Streamcast land? Is anyone on a...
So none of us own any VR equipment, but we have had some luck working with some brands that do. So we've played some VR games, including Beat Saber and Elven Assassin.
And I think it's Arizona Sunset as well.
Yeah,
is that what it's called?
I think so.
Arizona
Sunset
Sunshine.
or Sunshine.
Sunshine. Sorry, I always get it wrong like every single time.
And we've literally had a blast playing those games. So I don't know what it is. I really enjoyed playing VR at that place. But I don't think I would make the plunge to buy an entire VR set for myself.
Right.
I think there are a number of reasons. I think Annabel touched on it. It's not where it needs to be for it to be like a household thing. I think they're almost there, but I think with this next generation of gaming, they might perfect VR, and I don't know if that's going to be an Oculus Rift thing or a Sony thing or even a Microsoft thing. But I think in the next few years, a light bulb moment's going to happen with a gaming company, and they're going to find that thing that VR is missing to make it the next worldwide bestseller. And for me, VR seems very single player oriented. Even though we played multiplayer games,
who's going to have like 3 different VR sets in the house at the same time?
Exactly.
The money is not that long.
Everyone's going to need their own setup, and no one's got the money for like 4 or 5 or 6 setups in their own house. So it's a bit it's not fit for purpose financially. I think that's another reason why I wouldn't take the plunge and get a VR setup for myself.
I think there's also the physical aspect as well. Like, I don't know if everyone's played it, but the first time I played it, and actually a couple of times after that, playing it made me feel really sick.
Yeah,
Like,
actually, yeah.
It really disorientates like your vision, like my hands and everything that was shaking, because it really puts you outside of your body. And I think for people who naturally get dizzy or lightheaded and stuff, that's not healthy at all. Because I was only on for like 10 minutes, but it really shook me up.
If you're already susceptible to like kind of like any sort of like motion sickness or dizziness, it can really affect you. And it also very much depends on games. Like for some people, one game they cannot do, and then another game they can't. And because I like worked in a VR arena for a while over Christmas, and it's like really interesting seeing everyone's different reactions, especially like smaller kids are a great way to gauge a game. But yeah, one thing I wanted to touch on was that you said that there's not much multiplayer with it, without having multiple setups, but there is.
Is it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of games, not just VR chat, but like so if you've got a household and there's like 5 of you in that household with just one VR set, there's a lot of games that sort of like interact with like you have one person in the VR and then the other people are interacting with them in various ways, depending on the game. PlayStation have a really good like game on their VR system that has like loads of mini games where one person's in VR and other people have controllers, and there's like various mini games you have to do. There was a horror game in the store I worked at. I cannot remember the name of it. Which is I really would love to stream it because you can interact, you can log in on your phone, and a bit like Jackbox Games or something where you log in with your phone and then affect the game. So they're in the VR and you can literally scare them.
Right. I see.
Or like games where you have to communicate. So you see one thing on the screen and they see one thing in VR, and you have to like communicate things like that. So there are a lot of ways that VR can be multiplayer with just one.
That feels like the only practical way, because to expect like multiple people to invest that much in a headset. But I think if they make use of the devices that people already have to impact the game and make it a multiplayer experience, that just makes sense.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. It's hilarious. It's like modern day charades, but you're not acting stuff out. But you know what I mean? That kind of interaction that you have when you play charades.
Yeah, like one person's the center and then
Yeah.
everyone else is like around them.
So yeah, that kind of aspect's pretty fun.
Cool. Yeah, I think I've yet to I've tried VR, but I've not been sold on it so far. But I think with so the one thing I will say for like Valve and Half-Life Alyx is Valve, like with Half-Life 2, they set standards and sort of the industry followed to a certain extent. So I feel like if you're someone who is like into VR, this is like a really positive move because this is Valve using the technology, and what they are good at is introducing new technology and integrating it well into the game. So when they had the gravity gun, it was integral to being able to navigate the world and solve puzzles and make progress in the game. So I imagine with Half-Life Alyx, it'll sort of that VR element will be integral to the game and just let people know, okay, this is what you can do in VR in a fully fledged way. So yeah, it could be like a sort of one of those moments where you look back and you go, okay, that's where VR started to become like a more essential thing in gaming. All right, so I want to just take the temperature of the room, and before we get into this next generation PlayStation, Xbox thing, just see what consoles everyone has, just so we can get all our biases on the table and people can make their own judgments. So I own a PlayStation 4 at the moment. Tazziii, what do you have?
I own a Xbox One at the moment.
Okay. Annabel?
Is it what consoles we have or what?
Yeah. What consoles?
What we game on? Okay, I have a Switch and a PlayStation 4. I have a PlayStation
Cool.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, there we go. So, yes. Rose?
Same as Annabel, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a Switch.
Switch, okay, cool. Yeah, Isaac, what have you got?
I've got a PlayStation and a Switch, and I've got most of the old consoles as well. I just don't play them anymore.
Okay. Akira?
I I have a PlayStation 3, but I'm more of a PC gamer.
Fair enough. Yep. And Andy.
I've got a PS4 and a Switch.
Okay.
I
Cool.
did.
I just wanted to get that out.
Okay. I just want to point out, I didn't realize we was going to do like collections.
Oh, you got more to
I
say.
thought we was I thought we was gonna go for, like in this sort of like outfit.
So did I,
So,
but
so I'm
the
like
people spoke.
Xbox One, Switch, PC, PS3, and then previous generations. I'm just gonna say that. Just
If we're going old school, I also have my Game Boy and a DS.
Alright.
I just have everything.
Yep.
Everything
This is
earlier than that.
Hard to relate.
Yeah, no, it's,
But yeah, just to say that like I'm
wait
not
a minute.
just only have an Xbox.
All right, cool. I just wanted to, get that out so everyone knows. I also have a Switch, so I forgot to mention that. All right, so looking forward into the next generation, we had the reveals for Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. I'm going to start with the PlayStation, just because they had a whole sort of more recent like actual announcement. Did anyone watch that?
Yeah.
What did you think?
It felt like a lecture.
It was-
Oh my
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. If you didn't watch it, you're lucky.
Yeah.
I also watched it, and it was heavy on the details. There was a lot in there, and I definitely came away feeling like I should have revised for it. I didn't, but I feel what happened. So so PlayStation had their reveal, and Mark Cerny, the video game designer, sort of got up for what was it, like an hour, and went into serious detail on the technical aspects of the PS5. And I think, I don't know, I feel like they didn't quite read the room of what people were expecting, and gave that instead of what people wanted to see was like the highlights. But I feel what happened is, with GDC being cancelled earlier in the year, I think what happened is Sony just gave their GDC talk. So GDC, the Games Developer Conference, which by its nature is a more technical conference, and you've got developers talking about the technical aspects of games and making games and all that. So without the ability to have that event, obviously they must have prepared for it. I think they've just given their GDC talk. Obviously what people were waiting for, especially a lot of people on Twitter that I saw, were just like the headlines and some game footage and some visuals, but we didn't get that. But we did get, like I said, a lot of details, and we got information on sort of the processor, the graphics. They talked a lot about 3D sound and how that's going to impact. They talked about the solid state hard drive and what impact that will be on game loading. So, once you had a chance to dig through, or if you're like me, just watch the video of someone rounding up like the essential takeaways, what do people think about the PlayStation 5? How do you feel about it?
I have no
Well,
idea what it's like, so I cannot judge it.
Annabel, you
Sorry.
go first.
Um,
Annabel.
I didn't watch it, but I'm getting it anyway. I mean,
GTA
GTA can just be like, we're releasing number 6, and I'll be like, okay, where's the pre-order?
Yeah.
You had me at PlayStation 5. You don't even have to say anything else. I'm already there, first person.
Fair enough.
I love that.
All right, Tazziii, what do you think about it?
Yeah, like I have no idea what it looks like. So, like, I'm probably gonna get the PlayStation 5 sooner than I'll get the Xbox Series X, because I already have an Xbox One, and I don't have a PlayStation 4, especially since they've got backwards compatibility, which is the big reason why I chose an Xbox One over a PS4 sort of this generation. I had a fully plan to get a PS4, just my Xbox One has just kept pumping games at me, and at a really low or free cost. So I'm like, I have this. yeah, I have this massive backlog, and like a lot of my friends are on it, so it's like I had like less and less of an appeal to get a PS4 because I was like, I got a PS3, but the PS5, I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of PS4 games that I want to play. It's backwards compatible, so yeah. I was gonna get a PS4, but just never got around to it. So maybe I should go
So
for a
just
PS5. Yeah,
defer the decision a generation later.
yeah. And I've still got my Xbox One. I'll still probably mainly game on that, but there's a lot of exclusives that PlayStation have that I'm missing out on.
Yeah. All right. So, are there any of the PlayStation owners? I'm gonna assume you'd be interested in the PlayStation 5. Is there anyone who, given the details we've seen from the Xbox Series X, who might be thinking about getting that console instead? Have you seen anything from Microsoft to make you think about switching consoles the next generation?
No.
No.
No. Done. Well, thank you for joining us. That's been another episode of Stories.
I'm guessing none of you have ever played Halo.
I'm not a fan of Halo.
On the Xbox.
Not interested. Sorry.
I am
So-
drawn into the narrative games, so things like God of War and Spider-Man have always sold it for me. Even The Last of Us,
Great games.
Horizon
Last of Us.
Zero
Okay.
Dawn, all of those games are what brings me to
Yes.
PlayStation. Exclusives, narrative-driven
Interesting.
exclusives.
Yeah.
Right, so-
I'm so not that caught up on exclusives. I'm like, there's so many games in the world for like, but that's just me. It's like I'm such a like start a game, not finish it person. That like I'm like
I
there's so
get
many
you.
stories I can have out like, and I'm so bad at completing games just anyway. So like Last of Us really held my attention, but it still took me a while. I stopped for a while and then came back to it. So like it's like okay, cool. Like I can go with or without. I've started a lot of exclusives on PlayStation. I have friends with PlayStations. It's not like I've been
Some of your
starved.
best friends are PlayStation owners, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my best friend is a PlayStation owner. So and I've started Horizon Zero Dawn. Great game. But again, like I'm playing through about I've had to start a list of games I've started and not finished. Like games that are on, so it's like, yeah, they're great, but there's so many games, you know? So it's not like a console seller for me. Apart from a Switch, like that's different. Like Nintendo is a whole different exclusive.
Yeah, Nintendo's
race.
like
Yeah.
always
Not even
that's
gonna,
on the
yeah,
corner.
I'm always gonna have a Nintendo console.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just like I totally get it. I'm not like I really hate like the idea of there being a war on consoles because I just want everyone to play good games that they enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep this discussion civil and like just argue on the merits.
So I'm like,
Okay.
my
so
experience
no-
has been great on
and-
Xbox. And I love
So none of the other PlayStation owners are interested in changing consoles.
I'm not changing. I'm getting both.
yes.
There's
That's
always the option.
That's fair.
That's
Harmony.
the ultimate peace option is get both. So what I noticed from looking at sort of both of their reveals, because really like the technical specs are quite similar. I mean, there was this debate like for a while about like was it teraflops and the Xbox Series X having more meh. And then I think the SSD on the PlayStation is slightly lower capacity, but I think like practically speaking, they're like pretty much the same. But what I noticed is, and Rose, you sort of touched on this, is like differing strategies from Microsoft and Sony, where I see Microsoft sort of betting on the service of games as a service and like access to games. So like Tazziii, you said you've got Game Pass, so that lets you sort of actually just explain what Game Pass is and why it impacts your decision.
So Game Pass, you pay like a monthly subscription. It bunches up with your online, so you're live. And you have like a catalog of games that you can download on your console and play. You do have to be connected to the internet while you play them, but it doesn't have to be like a great connection. It's just so that it can check in that you have the license. And then you've just got like this whole library of games. They're continuously adding new games. Unfortunately, some games do like get taken out once in a while, but then you get them on discount if you really enjoyed them. You can get them really cheap after to keep. But yeah, you just have like this continuous wave of games that you've been wanting to play, and it also means that all of their Xbox exclusives or Microsoft, any of them like indie studios that are under them, all their games will be on Game Pass on release. And for me, that's great. I play a lot of games. There's a lot of games I want to just try, and it's kind of like having this I don't know, it's like this unlimited power of gaming.
It's like because I think was it last year's E3, like the big thing about Microsoft's conference is they announced they were buying up a whole bunch of developers, like studios, which I feel is like a play towards this, basically just giving you the service and then having a bunch of games for you to play. So I found it similar in the way, so when Disney bought Fox, like everyone was talking about Fantastic Four and X-Men coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is true, and that's great. But I think a large part of that deal was the acquisition of all Fox's content for Disney Plus. So you can now watch like The Simpsons on Disney Plus and all the stuff that was on Fox. So I saw that as a similar thing when Microsoft announced we bought all these studios. They're getting ready to bring out a whole bunch of games that Game Pass owners can just like dip in and out of, like you say. And then the other thing I saw them announce, I don't know, I think they announced it before, is the Microsoft xCloud or Project xCloud. Do you know much about that?
Yeah, I know a little bit. So I had the pleasure of going to XO19. I actually won some tickets. Thank you so much. Which was just like a really well put together event. It was exciting. And they did have like some xCloud demos there. And boy, does it run smooth. And it's literally a case that you play Xbox games on your like mobile device, whatever.
Is it like Stadia but Xbox is implemented?
Yeah, kind of. So yeah, but you play games that you own. So you log into your Microsoft account on xCloud. It doesn't play it from your Xbox. They have like their own server Xboxes running.
Yeah.
So you have like like some of it was playing better than it plays on my Xbox because I've got like an older Xbox. Yeah. So and I was like, oh my God, please. And every time I'm lying in bed and I don't have a TV in my room or anything. I don't like, it's kind of like a tech-free zone, but I've got, apart from my phones in there, and I'm like, oh, do you know what? I just want to spend like half an hour lying in bed on like Jurassic World. I just want to see to my dinosaurs. And I'm like, I really want xCloud. Please.
Yeah, it does look like the whole streaming thing is being done properly.
It's great. Like, it's a great thing that like if you do have an Xbox and you do enjoy an Xbox and you like sort of Xbox games and Halo and other games because they have those as well. That it's kind of like a bit of an ecosystem like Apple is. That it's just like, oh, I can just go across all of this. Because like Game Pass as well is, you can get the ultimate one, which gives you access to like PC games. Like from the Microsoft, there's like set Xbox Game Pass games on PC. So yeah, it's just like this whole world of like, it's just easy to exist in.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's nice. They have me like, I feel like I'm just nice and cozy. and I'll go and visit Sony for a while to play PlayStation, you know? Like, even if I get a PS5,
Yeah.
like, Xbox is probably still going to be my main console, which is crazy. I used to be, like, so anti-Xbox.
And they got you.
And then, yeah, when I got Kinect on the 360, Kinect was great.
Yeah,
And
for a
then,
while, for a little while.
yeah. And then, I mean, even the new one was great, but they just didn't do what it was capable of. Like, they just did not utilize it. Yeah, no, like, I like having an Xbox.
All right,
And
so then PlayStation owners, did any of that convince you? xCloud, Game Pass? Nope. Okay. All right. So, all right. So, like I said, I see the two companies like different strategies. So you've got Microsoft services, how you access games, and it feels like PlayStation are very much doubling down on the sort of exclusive, like, I guess largely story-driven experience games that work on your console. So things like I think someone mentioned Last of Us, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn. Last year, not last year, the year before, when they were at E3, they announced another set of games. One of them was Ghost of Tsushima, which really stood out to me. So it feels like they're really going into these like high quality first party exclusive games, and I guess that's where the lines are being drawn to a certain extent. So I think I always found, because I tend not to play that many games. Like if I look over it over a year, so I'm drawn more to the kind of just give me a great experience and let me just like enjoy that. I also take a while to complete games, but yeah, just give me that experience, and yeah, I'll be happy. So, are there any like particular first party games like people are like really into, either you've already played or like you're playing at the moment?
God of War's one.
Yeah.
Spider-Man. A lot of the PlayStation exclusives this generation have been really, really good. Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm very much looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima. I know it's been delayed for like 5 years, but they are finally giving us the game that we want.
But are they?
They are.
Oh, controversy.
They
Are
are.
they really? Yes.
How well do you know Sony?
Enough.
Just to like slightly derail this, I think there was a point in time when a lot of companies, take it back like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, they literally, not even literally, they thought that the narrative types of games, especially the co-op narrative types of games, are dying. And that's where obviously they were horribly wrong, because there's a huge market of people that still want to play that, because I know that competitive games are, you know, a huge appeal. And even then, like, you know, you pick up those games, you play those games, but you know, it's kind of like they were basing all their decisions at one point on the fact that the narrative based audience that want these story driven games are dying, when it really wasn't. And
yeah,
you know, A Way Out is actually, you know, what EA produced with one of the studios. A Way Out is actually a very good example of a co-op narrative-driven game that exceeded all expectations, and it was brilliant. For a short game, it was really great.
I never played it, but I remember seeing that that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it was really, you can see what your co-player is doing as well. So the whole couch play types of styles of games have always been a huge appeal to me. It just reminds me of nostalgia and stuff like that.
I massively agree with you. Like, I love a co-op story game. So I've like, me and my partner have played through all of the whole Halo series. We're just on 5 at the moment, together. But we had an issue of just, there was a point where they went in that direction of like story-driven games are not what people want. But then they also went to like, oh, story-driven games are just solo games. It's like
Yeah.
a good
yeah.
co-op is like so much fun. Like two of you just getting through a game. It's kind of like that, you know, when you're watching a Netflix series with someone and you
Yeah.
cannot watch the next episode without
Yeah.
them. Like,
Yeah, they
I
need
want,
to bring more, more
yeah,
co-op campaigns.
yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
want more of that like driven story that I can just enjoy with someone. It's one of the reasons why I started streaming, because there were so many single player games that I felt like I just wanted to share those experiences with people.
Mm.
I get that.
Yeah,
And
I'm glad that they have like realized that there are people that do want to play sort of the narrative-driven games, because I agree with Rose. It did feel like there was a big swing towards we have to make it sort of online multiplayer, forget the story, or that's an afterthought. And like for me, like I'm terrible at games. No one knows that because I play like story-driven games, so I just play it by myself, and you can't see all the mistakes I'm making. In fact, the first time I played Overwatch was at Annabel's event in the Microsoft store, and I got I got one round out of all of them. It doesn't matter how many rounds, I got one. So, but yeah, so I do like the kind of the community aspect of online games in the right setting with the right people, but sort of, I guess, a bias as someone who creates story. I'm always interested in what the story is and going through that experience. So for me, like the two that stand out immediately in the most recent future is sort of God of War and Last of Us, which were just amazing sort of story-driven games and experiences that just like stuck with me. So yeah, I kind of feel that it's good to see those coming back and someone investing in them. And then obviously if you add in like the co-op element where you've got people who can play together on the same game in the same room, again, that's something that like I remember some of my best gaming experiences were on the N64 and GoldenEye, and just having that split screen and just like hanging out with friends, and like that aspect is something I'd like to see in this next generation. Kind of like always keep a space for.
I only just played multiplayer GoldenEye for the first time.
Oh really?
Well, I don't know. When did we go 4/4? I don't know. Well, me, Streamcasters, and one of our friends went 4/4.
Okay. How was
I'm
that
great
like?
at it.
That was in January,
Really?
I think.
Yeah. It was January, was it?
How did it hold up?
Oh, it was really fun.
So fun.
Like, obviously the game's old, so it looks a certain type of way, but it was so fun to play.
That's another way of putting
Yeah.
it.
But it's still like, you know, it wasn't. There's some games, like older games, that you're like, oh, I just can't get on with these controls whatsoever. This is not aged well at all. Not even as like a throwback. But that was like a nice like throwback retro game to play, mainly because I'm good at it.
Dude, that always helps if you're really good at a game.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to, well, actually, just to touch on that, just PlayStation, Xbox point, just to wrap that up, is I do feel that it's going to be a kind of a choice. I mean, obviously you can go the Annabel route and get both. I'm going to consider that as well, but a choice between if you want that investment in the sort of narrative-driven game, or like if it's the services and the convenience of being able to access your games on your console, your phone, or PC. So it'll be interesting to see like how those strategies play out in the next generation and sort of what results. The one I wanted to sort of bring up still is Nintendo, and how do you think they fit into this next generation?
I think that Nintendo are in a really weird place. So oftentimes I would compare PlayStation and Xbox, like they are playing very much the same sport and they're trying to compete for their primary console. And what you'll find is a lot of people will have either a PS4 and a Switch or an Xbox One and a Switch. So people are getting Switches. And if you look back to the last generation, the Wii outsold the PS3 and the Xbox 360. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are buying Nintendo consoles, and it might not be their primary console, but people
But
are
if
still putting a lot of hours into it.
If
And I think
everyone,
they've-
like you said, if you're getting an Xbox and a Switch or a PlayStation Switch, isn't Switch winning because everyone's getting a Switch?
Yeah, everyone's got a Switch, and I think they've done really great with the Switch because, like you said, like everyone had a Wii in their house, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know any like people that don't play games had a Wii in their house. Like it was just a staple. It just went with your TV, like, and then with like the DS as well. Like so many people just had a DS, and then the Switch is like the perfect. They've really created something really great here because it's
I
got
agree.
the handheld element and the docked element, and then they've got the light for people that really just want a handheld.
And
I think they're just
here
gonna.
has a Switch.
Yeah.
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 I think there is
So there's
a
the real
massive
winner.
appeal of playing Pokemon on a large screen.
Yeah.
And the last time that ever happened was those old school TVs with a GameCube, where you could put
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
GBA cartridge into it.
Yeah.
Mainline game. Yeah. I was also
Yeah.
like a big fan of like Colosseum, and I was like, why do they not just make like make the games like this?
The appeal of just having it on a large screen, just being like, "Yep, this is
Yeah.
Pokemon right now."
And still being able to like take it out with you and chill.
Yeah.
So do you think
I don't think
Nintendo are
that's
going to
the same.
make a console? Because we're saying like, well, the plan is for the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 to be released this year. I guess we'll see how this coronavirus situation will impact on like supply and eventual release. But at some point, sort of end of this year, if not next year, we'll get new next generation Microsoft and Sony consoles. So next year, does Nintendo stick with what they have? Do you see them sort of starting to think about their next console?
I think their next console will just be another version of the Switch, and I think we can expect to see that for a long time. Because have you
It's
seen the
hardware
DS family?
That went on forever.
That's true.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
I think they only recently stopped like supporting it like last year or recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, the DS Lite?
Yeah, is it? Are they
DS.
still?
Like one of the
There's
DSs.
Animal Crossing DS Lite.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. I stand
DS
corrected.
Lite's still-
Right, there you go.
There you go. And that's not
Animal
even.
Crossing. I was trying to get an Animal Crossing Nintendo Switch, and I was like, hold on, wait, why am I only seeing a DS? What is this? How are they still making DS Lite? I was like, okay, cool.
The Wild World version of Animal Crossing.
I'll see.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I think we can expect to just see, a more powerful Switch and
Switch,
then
Yeah.
maybe a lighter dockable. I don't know. They'll just pull stuff out of a hat, like.
Like they do. Yeah. Nintendo are running their own race with
Yeah,
so, and it's working for them. So all right, so we managed to get through that discussion without anyone being upset. Everyone's still cool, we're all still friends. See, it can be done. There you go. All right. So as we come to the end of this segment, I did want to sort of, I guess, bring it back to coronavirus, but just put out that obviously we've been, we're forced into the situation. We've got a lot of time. So there's always that kind of aspect of, oh, I've got time to catch up on things. So I wanted to know from everyone, if you do have something in mind, like if there is a video game that you slept on and feel you might want to go, I was going to say go back to, or like try now that you've got some measure of extra time.
That would be my entire backlog, but I'll mention one.
Right?
Yep.
What's number one on that backlog?
Monster Hunter World right now.
Okay. Anyone else?
I really want to complete Breath of the Wild.
Mm,
Wow.
You know what? You just reminded me. I need to finish that. Yeah, there's my answer as well. I should. Yeah, I started that and I got pretty far, and then I think I got God of War, and I got distracted completely. But
We
I don't blame
understand.
you.
yeah, don't judge me. Okay, so we got Breath of the Wild. Anything else?
Well, Nier Automata is top of my list now, and I've got Final Fantasy 15 downloaded, and I haven't touched it yet. So it's
Yeah.
a good time.
Yeah.
Reminded me, Final Fantasy 15. I got it when it came out, and I don't even think I got halfway through it. Like, it's not because I wasn't enjoying it. Just I think something came out. I don't know.
There's too many games.
Too many games. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna have to start it from the beginning.
Oh, it's that long.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, cool. So yeah, I just wanted to, give you guys a reminder of the games that are in your list, just waiting for you to pay them some attention. So you're welcome for that public service. All right, so yeah, let us know what you think. Have you got some games in your backlog that you're just like waiting to play? Now is the time. Literally, you've got nothing else to do.